The cowboy's unexpected love after 20 years alone. The wind howled across the New Mexico desert, carrying icy spears of snow that stung Lila's cheeks. She pulled her coat tighter and squinted against the blinding white, watching her robotic cattle move slowly through the drifting snow. The sky was a strange mix of natural moonlight and faint neon glow from distant terraforming stations, an eerie reminder that even the frontier was not untouched by technology. "Mara, check the north fence line," Leela shouted over the roar of the storm. Her younger sister nodded, disappearing behind a snowdrift to inspect their perimeter. The ranch was small, almost forgotten by the corporations that ruled the outer territories, but it was theirs. It had been their parents before them, and now it was their responsibility to keep it running, even in the harshest winter the desert had seen in decades. Lila turned back to her mecha cattle, watching the tiny robotic drones hover above the animals, keeping them from straying into the deeper snow. The drones were helpful, yes, but they could not replace human intuition. That was something Lila had learned from years of watching over the ranch, learning every nuance of the land, the wind, and the weather. Then she saw it. A figure, barely visible through the white haze, moving slowly and unevenly toward the ranch. At first she thought it was a trick of the snow, maybe the shadow of a boulder or a mirage in the neon-lit storm. But as the figure came closer, Lila realized it was a person. Someone struggling, their clothes torn, carrying a small glowing device that pulsed faintly in the darkness. "Mara! Over here!" Lila called, her voice trembling slightly. The wind swallowed her words, but her sister heard them and came running. Together they ran toward the stranger, careful not to slip on the icy ground. The closer they got, the more Lila could see. The stranger's face was pale, lips blue, eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. Whoever they were, they had been outside in this storm far too long. Lila felt a surge of pity and concern. "We can't just leave them out here," Mara said, her voice steady despite the cold. Lila nodded. "Help me get them inside." It took both sisters' strength to drag the stranger across the snow and into the warmth of their small ranch house. Inside, the warmth hit them immediately, a stark contrast to the frozen chaos outside. The stranger collapsed on the floor, shivering violently, their hands clutching the glowing device like it was a lifeline. Lila knelt beside them, brushing snow from their hair. "We need to get you warmed up." "What's your name?" she asked softly, though she did not expect an answer. The stranger's lips moved, but only a faint whisper came out. "Mission cannot fail," they said, voice barely audible. Lila frowned, glancing at Mara. "What does that mean?" she asked. But the stranger's eyes rolled back, and they fell into unconsciousness again. Mara moved to the small heater and adjusted the temperature. "They must have been out there for hours, maybe more. Look at them, they're nearly frozen." Lila nodded, her mind racing. "We have to trust them, at least for now. The storm, it's too dangerous to leave them outside." They worked together carefully, wrapping the stranger in thick blankets and giving them warm water to sip. The glowing device on the floor pulsed faintly, almost as if it had a heartbeat of its own. Mara picked it up carefully, inspecting it. "This is some kind of map," she said, squinting at the holographic display. "But it's not like any map I've ever seen. The coordinates are flashing, moving. I don't understand it." Lila frowned. "We don't need to understand it yet. Right now, we need to keep them alive." The stranger's breathing steadied, and slowly they began to wake. Their eyes fluttered open and they looked around the warm room with confusion and fear. Who are you?" Lila asked gently. The stranger's eyes focused on Lila and Mara, and a faint smile appeared despite their exhaustion. I can't say my name," they whispered, "but I'm on a mission. It's very important. If I fail, many people will be in danger." Mara exchanged a glance with Lila. "You're asking a lot of us," she said. "We don't even know if we can trust you." The stranger nodded weakly. "I know, and I understand. But the storm, if you don't help me, I won't survive the night." That was enough for the sisters. In the New Mexico desert, survival came first, questions second. Lila handed the stranger another cup of warm water, and they drank it eagerly, shivering less with every sip. As the hours passed, the storm outside continued to rage, snow piling against the walls, wind rattling the windows. The sisters took turns watching the stranger, making sure they stayed warm and alert. The glowing device sat on the table between them, pulsating softly, casting strange shadows across the room. Finally, the stranger began to speak more clearly. I'm being hunted," they said, "by people who want this device." If they get it, the frontier, everything will change. Lila frowned. Hunted? By who? They don't care who gets hurt. They just want control. The map, it's the key. It shows the location of something very powerful. Something that can't fall into the wrong hands. Mara glanced at the glowing device again, awe and fear in her eyes. This is bigger than us, she said softly. But maybe we can help. The stranger's lips curved into a faint, grateful smile. Thank you, that means more than you know. Outside, the storm showed no sign of letting up. The sisters knew that by helping the stranger, they were putting themselves at risk, but they also knew that letting them die in the cold was not an option. Lila looked at Mara. We've survived cold nights before, she said quietly. This is just another challenge, and maybe we can do something important for the first time in our lives. Mara nodded. Together. For the rest of the night, they tended to the stranger, keeping watch for any sign of danger outside. Occasionally, the faint glow of a distant hover drone flickered through the storm, but it was impossible to tell if it was watching them or passing by. As dawn approached, the storm began to ease. The first light of day cast a pale pink glow across the snow, illuminating the desert like a frozen sea. The stranger, now more coherent, looked out the window at the vast, cold expanse. I need to keep moving, they said quietly, but I couldn't have survived the night without you. Lila smiled softly. You survived. That's what matters. But tell me this. Can we trust you? The stranger looked at her with steady eyes. You already have, they said. By letting me in, by helping me, you've already shown the courage that counts. I promise I won't forget it. Mara glanced at the glowing device one last time before the stranger carefully picked it up. Be careful, she said. Out there, the storm and others I know, the stranger said. But it's my mission. And now, you've given me a chance. With that, they stepped outside into the brightening desert, the wind still biting, but not as fierce as before. The sisters watched, hearts pounding, as the figure disappeared into the distance, the glowing device pulsing faintly in the pale morning light. For a moment the ranch was silent, the only sound the gentle hum of their mecha cattle drones. Lila and Mara looked at each other, a mix of fear, excitement, and wonder in their eyes. That was something, Mara whispered. Lila nodded. And this is just the beginning. Somewhere in the cold New Mexico wilderness, a mission continued, carried on by a stranger who had survived the storm, thanks to the courage of two sisters who knew that even in a harsh, frozen world, trust and kindness could make a difference. And the desert, with its strange neon skies and icy winds, held its secrets tightly. But for now, the sisters knew they had stepped into something bigger than themselves, something that might change their lives forever. The morning sun barely reached the horizon when Lila and Mara finally allowed themselves a moment to breathe. The storm had passed, leaving the New Mexico desert coated in a thick layer of sparkling snow. Outside, the world looked calm, but inside their small ranch house, tension hummed quietly. The stranger was awake now, sitting on the floor wrapped in thick blankets and carefully examining the glowing device that had drawn them into the storm. Lila poured herself a cup of warm tea, her hands still shaking slightly from the adrenaline of the night. We did what we could, she said softly to Mara, though her voice carried a hint of uncertainty. But I still don't know who that person really is, or if we should trust them. Mara leaned against the doorway, eyes fixed on the stranger. Trust is something you build over time, she said. But the storm, that was no ordinary weather. There's something about them, and that device, that's bigger than just surviving a blizzard. The stranger's eyes met Mara's, sharp and alert despite the exhaustion etched into their features. I know what you're thinking, they said quietly. You don't know me. You shouldn't trust me. And yet, I had no other choice but to come here. Lila set her tea down, curiosity outweighing caution. Why are you here, and what is that device? The stranger hesitated, glancing at the pulsing holographic map projected above the device. The light shimmered across the walls, painting the sisters' faces in an eerie glow. This map shows something very important, the stranger said. Coordinates, locations, things that can't fall into the wrong hands. I was sent to protect it. Mara frowned, stepping closer. Protect it? From who? The corporation, the stranger said in a low voice. They control much of the outer territories. They want this device for themselves. It can shift power across the entire frontier. If it is taken, lives will be at risk. Lila sat down beside the stranger, trying to process the weight of their words. You're saying if they get this, people could die? The stranger nodded, their eyes flicking nervously toward the window. Yes. That's why I couldn't survive the night without help. And now I have to keep moving. Mara shook her head slightly. And what if they follow you here? That storm might have been random, but the corporation, they have drones, trackers, weapons. They would have found you sooner or later.
The stranger's jaw tightened.
I've been careful, but the storm pushed me off course. I didn't expect to be discovered until tomorrow, or maybe not at all. That's why I'm grateful you helped me.
You bought me time.
Lila glanced at Mara. We can't just send them out into the desert again, it's too dangerous. But if we hide them, they might be caught anyway. Maybe we don't have to hide them. Maybe we can help them escape, if we're smart about it. The stranger looked at the sisters, hope glimmering faintly in their eyes. I didn't expect anyone to offer help. Most people would have ignored me, or worse. Lila hesitated, then spoke firmly. We're not most people. But you need to tell us something more. Why are you really here? What is that device? The stranger sighed, the sound filled with fatigue and unease. The device, it's more than a map, it's a locator. It points to a source of energy hidden in the desert, a new type of energy that could power settlements across the frontier, make life easier, or give the corporation control over everything. I was sent to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. Mara's eyes widened. Energy? Hidden in the desert? Are you saying this is some kind of secret power source? Yes, the stranger said softly, and it's unstable. If it is mishandled, people could be hurt. Lila's mind raced. So that storm, the corporation, the device, it's all connected, and somehow we were pulled into it just by helping you survive the night. The stranger nodded. Exactly. And now, time is critical. I need to move before they track me here. But I also need to know I can trust you, that you won't lead them to me. Mara stepped closer, determination in her eyes. We won't. But you have to promise us you'll explain everything. If we're involved, we need to understand what's happening. This isn't just about survival, it's about choice. The stranger hesitated, then extended a hand toward the holographic map. Look at this. These coordinates. They aren't fixed. They move when someone tries to interfere with the energy source. That's why the corporation wants it. They think controlling it means controlling the frontier. But it's dangerous, unpredictable. That's why I was sent to protect it. Lila and Mara bent closer, studying the device. The holographic points shifted slowly, pulsing faintly like living stars. Lila's heart pounded with excitement and fear. So we could help? Somehow. The stranger's eyes glimmered with hope. Yes. But it won't be easy. You'll have to use everything you know about the desert, its terrain, the hidden paths, the old trails, and you'll have to think like me, like someone who's being hunted. Mara glanced at the glowing map, then back at the stranger. It's risky, she said, but it might also be the only way to stop them from taking this energy, and we can't just stand by. The stranger smiled faintly, exhaustion softening their features. Then, I have hope. With you, maybe there's a chance. Hours passed, and the sisters worked with the stranger to plan a way forward. They moved their livestock drones into protective patterns around the ranch, creating signals and decoys to mask any unusual activity. They studied the map, marking potential routes and safe points in the desert where the stranger could hide if pursued. Outside, the desert was quiet now, the storm leaving behind a sparkling, frozen world. The sisters could see distant mountains, ridges buried in snow, and the faint glow of terraforming stations in the distance. The landscape was beautiful but dangerous, a perfect place for both survival and secrecy. As they worked, the stranger shared more about their mission. I'm part of a group, they said. Not soldiers, not rebels, just people trying to keep the frontier safe. We find threats before they become disasters. The corporation doesn't care about people, only power. Lila nodded. We've seen their drones before. They hover over settlements, scanning, watching, always controlling. But this device, if you protect it, you're giving people a choice. Yes, the stranger said, and that's why I cannot fail. Mara studied the stranger's face carefully. You're human, she said finally. Even if your mission makes you seem almost like a machine, you have fear, hope, everything. And that's why you'll survive. Because you're willing to ask for help? The stranger looked at her, a faint smile tugging at the corner of their lips. I never thought... I'd find help from people like you. From the frontier. Most of my journey has been alone. Lila placed a hand on the stranger's shoulder. You're not alone anymore. Not while we're here. By mid-afternoon, the sisters had prepared a small pack of supplies for the stranger. Extra clothing, food, water, and tools that might help navigate the harsh desert. The glowing device was carefully wrapped and secured, ready to be moved. But even as the stranger rested, the sisters could not shake a feeling of unease. Mara walked to the window and looked out across the desert. In the distance, a faint light flickered. A hovering drone scanning the horizon, moving slowly as if searching for something. They're out there, Mara said quietly, watching. The stranger's eyes hardened. We have no time to waste. The corporation will not wait. Lila took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the night's events pressing down on her. She looked at Mara, who nodded silently in understanding. Whatever came next, they would face it together. As evening approached, the stranger finally began to regain some strength. Their movements were slow but purposeful, and the sisters could see a flicker of determination in their eyes. We leave at first light, the stranger said. We cannot risk staying another night, but with your help, we might just succeed. Mara smiled faintly, hope mingling with fear. Then we'll be ready. That night, the sisters stayed awake, keeping watch while the stranger slept. The desert outside was quiet, but the sisters knew better than to trust its silence. Somewhere in the shadows, danger lingered, and the corporation's eyes were likely upon them. But for now, the ranch was a haven, warm, safe, and filled with the quiet courage of two sisters who had chosen to stand beside a stranger in the cold. And in that quiet, they all knew. The night had passed, but the real journey was only beginning. The first light of dawn painted the New Mexico desert in soft shades of pink and gold, but the air was still sharp and cold. Snow covered the mesas and canyons, sparkling like frozen glass under the rising sun. Lila and Mara had woken early, preparing their mecha horses for the journey. The stranger, now more alert, checked the glowing device and adjusted its projections. Every pulse of the hologram seemed to flicker with urgency, as if reminding them that danger was close behind. We need to move quickly, the stranger said, voice low but steady. The corporation will track this storm. If they find us now, they'll follow the trail until we're caught. Mara tightened the straps on her mecha horse. We know the desert better than anyone. Between the canyons and the old paths, we have a chance to lose them. Lila adjusted her coat and nodded. Then let's get going. But stay alert. One mistake and we could be surrounded. The trio mounted their mechanical horses, whose engines hummed softly beneath them. These were no ordinary mounts. Built for speed, agility, and endurance, they were the sisters' pride and the only way they could navigate the frozen desert with any chance of safety. The stranger led the way, following the shifting coordinates of the glowing device which pointed toward a hidden energy source somewhere in the vast wilderness. As they moved through the narrow canyon trails, the wind howled through the rocks, carrying with it the remnants of the previous storm. Snow crunched beneath the mecha horse's hooves, and every shadow seemed to flicker with potential danger. Suddenly a faint hum broke the silence. Mara's head shot up. Drones, she whispered. I can see them, just above the ridge. The stranger's eyes narrowed. They're fast, too fast to outrun in a straight line. We'll need to use the terrain, Lila pointed ahead. The canyon twists here. If we split, maybe we can confuse them. They won't know which path we take. The sisters exchanged a glance and nodded. With careful precision, they guided their mecha horses through the jagged paths, the stranger weaving between them, holding the device tightly. The drones hovered above, scanning, their lights bright against the soft desert snow. Lila took a deep breath, recalling every secret path her family had used over the years. Follow me, she called, turning sharply down a narrow side trail hidden by a snowdrift. Mara followed close, and the stranger hesitated for only a moment before trusting them. The drones followed, but the sisters' knowledge of the land gave them an edge. They ducked behind rock formations, leapt across frozen streams, and used snowbanks to hide their tracks. Occasionally, one of the drones swept past too close for comfort, forcing the riders to press low on their mounts, hearts pounding. After an hour of tense movement, the desert opened into a wide plateau. Lila halted, breathing heavily. We need to rest for a moment, she said. The next part is dangerous. Thin ice, cliffs, and open space. But we can use the snow to our advantage. The stranger looked at the sisters, admiration in their tired eyes. You know this land better than anyone I've ever met. With you, I have hope. Mara nodded. We'll get through this, but we have to stay sharp. They'll adapt quickly. The plateau stretched ahead, a glittering expanse of ice and snow, dotted with boulders and small outcroppings. The sisters led their mecha horses carefully, using the terrain to break line of sight with the drones. They set small snow traps, piles that would trigger sensors or reflect light in ways that confused the trackers. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the hum of the drones and the whirring of the mechanical horses. The stranger's device pulsed constantly, guiding them toward the hidden energy source. Each flicker of the hologram felt like a heartbeat, a reminder of the stakes that weighed on all of them. Suddenly a low rumble echoed through the plateau. Mara's ears twitched. "Avalanche!" she whispered. "We have to move. Now!" The sisters spurred their horses forward, leading the stranger along a narrow rock ledge. Snow and ice tumbled down the slopes behind them, masking their trail and slowing the drones. The wind screamed through the canyon, carrying the sound of falling snow like thunder. Breathless and frozen, they finally reached the edge of a cliff overlooking a hidden valley. Below, the desert stretched endlessly, dotted with patches of ice and hidden ravines. "The energy source," the stranger explained, "was somewhere in that valley, protected but vulnerable if the corporation found it first." "We need to descend carefully," the stranger said, scanning the holographic map. "The corporation drones will be adapting to our movements soon. We have one chance to reach the valley undetected." The descent was treacherous. The sisters guided their mecha horses down narrow ledges, balancing carefully against ice and loose rocks. Every step required precision, or they could slip into the valley below. The stranger led with quiet focus, occasionally pointing out safer paths, their knowledge of the coordinates proving invaluable. As they reached the valley floor, the sun broke fully over the horizon, casting long shadows across the snow. For a moment, it felt like they had escaped, but the faint hum of drones in the distance reminded them that the corporation was still hunting. "We can't stay," Layla said, scanning the horizon. "We need to keep moving toward the coordinates." The stranger adjusted the glowing device, which now pulsed faster, signaling they were very close. "The energy source is near," they said. "We can't afford mistakes." The sisters and the stranger moved cautiously through the valley, avoiding open areas and sticking to rocky outcrops. Suddenly, the device emitted a sharp pulse, brighter than before. The stranger's eyes widened. "We're here," they said. "Somewhere in this area is the hidden facility." Lila looked around, scanning the snowy landscape. "Where?" she asked. The stranger held up the device. "It's not visible from the surface. Covered, camouflaged, even drones have trouble detecting it. But we need to approach carefully. One wrong move and they'll know we're here." The sisters exchanged a glance, determination on their faces. Mara adjusted her mecha horse's sensors, preparing for any sign of detection. "We can do this," she said. "We've faced worse." As they moved closer, a shadow flickered on the edge of their vision. A drone hovered above the valley ridge, its sensors sweeping the ground. Lila froze, signaling the others to hide behind boulders. The stranger held the device tightly, sweat glistening on their forehead despite the cold. The drones swept past, unaware of the trio hiding in the snow. Mara let out a quiet breath. "That was too close," she whispered.
Leela nodded. "We need to hurry."
The energy source won't wait, and neither will they. Carefully they navigated through hidden paths, using every trick the sisters knew, snow reflections, shadows, and rock formations, to stay hidden. The glowing device pulsed faster, guiding them toward a concealed entrance. Covered by snow and rocks, it was almost invisible. "We're here," the stranger whispered, eyes wide with relief. "The facility? If we can protect this, the frontier can be safe." Suddenly, a shadow moved across the snow, a scout drone, larger than the others, approaching quickly. Mara grabbed the stranger's arm. "We need to act. Now." Using quick thinking, Lila activated a decoy from her mecha horse, a small holographic flare that projected a false heat signature. The drone's sensors focused on the decoy, giving them a chance to slip into the hidden entrance. Inside, the valley facility was silent, cold, and dimly lit. The sisters followed the stranger carefully, every footstep echoing. The glowing device now rested on a console, scanning and stabilizing the energy source. The air hummed faintly with power, and the sisters could feel its warmth even in the freezing valley. "We made it," the stranger said, voice filled with exhaustion and relief. "But this isn't over. The corporation will not give up easily. They will come for this, and for us." Lila nodded, feeling a mix of pride and fear. "We've come this far. We'll face them if we have to. But for now, we rest, and we prepare." The sisters settled in beside the stranger, feeling the quiet hum of the energy source around them. Outside, the valley remained silent, but they all knew it was only temporary. The corporation would be relentless, but so were they. For now, they had survived the cold hunt, reached the hidden facility, and taken the first step toward protecting something far larger than themselves. And in the quiet of the frozen valley, they felt something rare in the harsh frontier: hope. The valley was quiet, almost unnaturally so. Snowflakes drifted lazily in the pale morning light, and the distant mountains cast long shadows across the frozen ground. Inside the hidden facility, Leela, Mara, and the stranger worked in silence, tending to the glowing device that hummed with raw energy. Every pulse from its core seemed to echo in their chests, a reminder that this power could shape the future of the frontier, or destroy it if misused. The stranger studied the device carefully, their eyes flicking over the holographic coordinates. "We need to stabilize it fully," they said. "The corporation will come looking soon. If they find this place before we secure it, they could take it by force, or, worse, damage it." Mara adjusted the sensors on her mecha horse, which they had stationed inside the facility. "They'll be here," she said quietly. "I can feel it. Drones, maybe more. But at least they won't know exactly where we are, yet." Lila looked at the stranger. "We've come so far, but I can't stop thinking about what happens next. What choice do we make when they arrive?" The stranger nodded gravely. "That's the question. The energy source is powerful, but it can't fall into the wrong hands. You've already risked everything by helping me. Now the decision is ours together." The sisters exchanged a glance, understanding the weight of the moment. This was more than survival. It was about principle, courage, and responsibility. Lila's mind raced, thinking of their family ranch, the drones, and the years of life in the frontier. Protecting this energy source could save countless settlements, but it also meant putting themselves in direct danger against a corporation that would stop at nothing. Hours passed as they worked. The stranger adjusted the device's stabilizers while the sisters monitored the perimeter, their mecha horses ready to respond to any movement outside. The glow from the device bathed the room in a soft, pulsing light, highlighting every tense expression on their faces. Suddenly, a faint vibration ran through the valley floor. Mara's head snapped toward the window. "They're here," she whispered. Through the icy haze, a fleet of drones appeared on the ridge above, scanning the valley methodically. Some were small scouts, others larger, more advanced, with sensors designed to detect heat, movement, and even electronic signatures. The stranger clenched their fists around the device. "We need a plan. If they find us, we can't let them take this." Lila's eye swept the room, landing on a console that controlled the facility's security systems. "We can't fight them all head on," she said. "But we can mislead them, slow them down, maybe give ourselves enough time to protect the device?" Mara nodded, quickly coordinating with the stranger. They activated a series of decoys, holographic flares, moving heat signatures, and automated traps designed to confuse drones and scanners. The valley became a maze of illusions, snow, and hidden paths, all designed to mislead their pursuers. Outside, the drones reacted immediately, buzzing toward the false targets. The sisters and the stranger exchanged relieved glances, though the danger was far from over. "Now," the stranger whispered, "we need to secure the energy source. It has to be hidden and stabilized so that even if they find this valley, they won't get it." The sisters helped move the device to a central chamber, deep within the facility. The stranger carefully adjusted its core, ensuring the energy flowed in a controlled loop. The room hummed with a steady, powerful vibration, and for a moment it felt as though time itself held its breath. Outside, the drones began to adapt, scanning the valley more intelligently. Some passed by the facility without noticing, but others lingered, analyzing shadows and heat signatures. Lila and Mara stayed close to the entrance, watching, ready to act. "Almost done," the stranger said, sweat beading on their forehead despite the cold. "Just a few more adjustments, and the device will be stable. Then it will be safe." Mara placed a hand on the stranger's shoulder. "You're doing it." "We're doing it. Together." Lila nodded, her heart racing. "And when it's stable, what then?" "Do we stay here or leave? The corporation won't give up so easily." The stranger looked at her with a faint smile. "We leave, but on our own terms. This place can be hidden indefinitely if we disguise it properly. But we can't risk being caught here. We have to move before they adapt." The final adjustments were made. The device's glow shifted to a steady pulse, no longer erratic. The stranger exhaled deeply, relief washing over their features. "It's done. The energy source is safe, hidden, and stabilized." Now, Leela and Mara scanned the valley. The drones were adapting faster now, some beginning to detect patterns in the snow and terrain. "We need a distraction," Lila said. "Something big enough to make them lose focus long enough for us to escape." The stranger nodded, their eyes scanning the facility. "There's an old geothermal vent nearby. If we trigger it, it could create enough heat and steam to mask our trail and distract the drones." Mara's face lit up. "Then let's do it. We have one shot at this." The trio quickly moved to the vent, setting small charges to release a controlled burst of heat. Within moments, steam rose from the vent, billowing across the valley. The drones detected sudden temperature changes and moved toward the vent, their sensors overwhelmed by the sudden anomaly. "Go!" the stranger shouted. They mounted their mecha horses and dashed toward a hidden canyon path Leela had spotted. Mara followed close, guiding the stranger through the twisting rocks and snow. The drones were distracted, giving them a precious head start. The canyon was narrow and treacherous, but the sisters' knowledge of the terrain gave them an advantage. They led the stranger through sharp turns, over frozen streams, and around snow-covered boulders. Every moment was tense, every shadow a potential threat. Finally, they reached a small plateau where the snow had been disturbed by the storm, providing a natural cover. The stranger paused, holding the glowing device. "We made it, for now," they said, voice full of gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you." Lila shook her head, smiling faintly. "No, we couldn't have done it without you either. It was your mission, your energy source, but you trusted us, and that's why we're here." Mara looked toward the horizon, where the drones were slowly regrouping, still unaware of their exact location. "We've delayed them enough for today, but the frontier is never safe. There will always be more threats." The stranger nodded solemnly. "And that's why the choice we made matters. We didn't just survive the storm. We protected something that can help countless lives. That is worth everything we risked." Lila looked at Mara, feeling a quiet pride. "We chose courage over fear. That's the frontier way, and it feels..." As the sun rose higher, casting warm light across the snow-covered valley, the trio paused to catch their breath. The stranger adjusted the glowing device, securing it for the next leg of their journey. Lila and Mara knew that their lives had changed forever. They were no longer just ranchers in a frozen desert. They were part of something bigger, something that could shape the future of the frontier. "Where will you go now?" Mara asked. The stranger looked toward the distant mountains, determination in their eyes. "I continue my mission. I protect what must be protected. And I will never forget the courage you showed tonight." Lila smiled softly. "Then go. The frontier owes you, and maybe we do too." They watched as the stranger mounted their mecha horse and disappeared into the snow, the glowing device pulsing steadily against the pale desert light. The sisters remained on the plateau, feeling the chill of the morning but warmed by the knowledge that they had made a difference. "The world out there is bigger than we imagined," Mara said quietly, "but somehow I feel like we're ready for it." Lila nodded. "And no matter what comes next, we've learned that courage, trust, and choice can change everything, even in the coldest, harshest places." For a moment, the desert seemed to hold its breath. The wind whispered through the canyon, carrying snowflakes and faint echoes of the night's events. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a mission continued. And here, in the quiet of the plateau, two sisters smiled at the knowledge that, even in the harsh frontier, hope and bravery could triumph. And with that, the sun fully rose over New Mexico, bathing the frozen valley in golden light, a new day beginning, not just for the sisters, but for the frontier itself.